Man, big shout out to all the people that jump in right away. Mike, I saw you beating everybody for the first champion. Triked, the first champion of the first, what, like 45 episodes of Gamified. Absolute beast. AE, always bringing the hype, dropping the graphics. Phil, Solus, Guy, Demoj. Oh, so good to see you guys, man. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. We're gonna have an absolute banger of an episode today. I absolutely cannot wait, and so stoked that we got to get Mr. Bride DeSanto in the building. Gonna bring him up to the panel now, but Infinigods finally getting the opportunity to talk about some of the stuff that they've been cooking up, some of the things they had the opportunity to tell us about at the Wolves Den at GDC, and it makes me so happy to see one of my absolute favorite teams winning. Big shout out to them, man.
Was Nocta speaking? I didn't hear him.
I didn't hear him either if he was, so fingers
Knock
crossed.
is always speaking.
Dude, Sam, you were saying a lot of nice things about me, and Twitter rugged me as I was joining as speaker. So thank you for all the kind words. I'm sure we'll get back into it.
Excuse me, still down bad from my Dubai sickness, so my voice is going in and out. But we're gonna try to pull up for all 2 hours. If anybody wants to drop us a retweet, a like, a comment, all that good stuff too. We're gonna have two Cityverse whitelists to give out today too, which I'm really excited to give to some of my favorites here, always supporting the show. Big shout out to all the homies. We're gonna give it another 2 minutes, and I'll drop some introductions, drink some water, get some tea, soothe the throat, so I can scream for 15 minutes in a row on Twitter. Jerry, what's the verdict? Are we glad that we missed Dubai, or are you down bad for not being able to party with the Habibis?
Bro, I have zero FOMO. I had zero FOMO going into it. Had zero FOMO as I saw you guys getting fucking biblical rain poured on you. And hearing that you're sick makes it all confirmed. I'm sorry you're sick though, man. That sucks. But no, yeah, don't feel like I missed a thing.
Oh, it's all good. If you just want to come over, I'll give you this illness, and then you can basically say that you were in Dubai. We'll just call it even.
Yeah, dude, I'll get the full experience just off that alone.
Yeah,
Dude,
nobody
I'm gonna be
loses here.
honest. I'm still coming down off GDC. Like, I don't know how you guys just did this again for like three
Yeah,
or
you
four
guys are
days.
fucking psychos for that, dude.
Like, insane. I'm with Jerry, man. I had no. It was beautiful. I'm so happy you guys had a blast. But I was very cozy, comfy on my couch watching.
I 100% agree, bro. Like I don't have the mental capacity, my mental battery from like hanging out and socializing with people after, just like being at home and working from home all the time, just needed like some time to recharge.
Dude, introverts unite.
Yeah, somebody in the comments, let's see, who is it? Thrillcraft Titans says Sam is back. Was Dubai worth it with all the flood? Honestly, I would say the first 2 days, I was like, man, this was not worth it at all. This was a terrible idea. What am I doing here? And then the next 2 days, I was like, this is totally worth it. This is great. So we'll call it a break even. Could have been better. Could have been worse. I also put myself heavily in the introvert camp, which people are sometimes surprised to learn about me. But it definitely makes it tricky. GDC was friggin' incredible, but also a week long, which was a lot. At least this was 4 days, and then I just got to listen to music for 24 hours on a plane. So, the pros and the cons, but down bad from being sick. We're gonna give it another 30 seconds, then I'll pop in with the intros. Big shout out to all the people that dropped us a retweet and everybody commenting already. Appreciate you guys tremendously. All right, buckle up because our first guest is the architect behind the ascent of Soar esports, steering into the stratosphere until it was snapped up by 11 Gaming. A scholar of the stream and a mentor of Fortnite marvels, this man navigates the nebulous nexus of gaming with ease. But that's not all. He's also a pivotal player in the powerhouse team at Magic Eden, now trading on ETHL1, Ordinals, and everything else under the sun. Welcome to the panelists, the Emperor of Esports, the Maven of Magic Eden. It's Knock.
Good to be back. I landed in the Dominican on Wednesday when the show was starting, and the first thing I see is the news that Yuga sold some properties over to Faraway, and I could hear Koji and Ed talking shit. So I'm excited to dive into some of this stuff
Oh
today.
my God, dude, I am so excited for that topic. It's taking everything in me to not put it first and foremost, or to already not be talking about it, but we'll get to it in due time. And from helmet to headset, from hoses to high stakes, this former firefighter has swapped his fire truck for the fast track of financial forecasts. His courage under fire now drives his conquests in commerce, proving that true heroes don't just exist in epics, they excel in equity. So brace yourselves to feel the burn of excitement as we introduce the sizzling strategist, the daring dealer of digits, the baron that's blazing the boardroom, representing Uptick. It's the man with the Midas touch. It's Jerry, the Golden God singer.
Yo, what's going on? I'm here once again to carry this panel like Fernando Alonso carries Aston Martin every Sunday.
Wow, we've graduated from baseball to F1 references. We're so proud of that evolution. Well done. Step into the spotlight, the maestro of the mustache, the wizard of wallets, the behemoth of business development. He's not just a technical engineer, he's the visionary virtuoso behind Stardust, pioneering the path for wallets as a service and mastering the art of user acquisition in the Web3 gaming world. With a mustache as magnificent as his mind, each follicle finely tuned to the frequencies of innovation, he crafts not just code, but the very future of financial tech interaction. It's the Sultan of Stardust, the mustached maestro. It's Andy Adams.
My mustache gets FM now too. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Wow, what an update. That must have been a 2.0. Incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hats and hearts because the stage is set for a soloist who swapped 6 strings for the Silicon Symphony, the maestro who morphed melodies into megabytes, the rock star reborn as the ruler of the blockchain beat. From headbanging in dive bars, he's taken the leap from the limelight to live gigs, to lighting up the ledger with a lore as legendary as his licks. It's Ledger Zeppelin, it's Ram Halen, it's Commander of Cards and the Prince of Parallel, it's Koji.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me back yet again. I can't wait to get into this Yuga thing with Knock. I've been trying to sit down and talk with him for a while, and it hasn't worked out. He doesn't want to take me for any more stakes, but I'm hoping that I can get his 2 cents because I'm so curious as to what he has to say about it.
You and me both, brother. And with a portfolio packed with projects, this multi-time founder has fired up 5 NFT collections on Farcaster, each selling out quicker than you can say gas fee. Now he's building Farcade, a fantastical functional arcade inside of the social media platform Farcaster. It's the father of Farcade, the social shapeshifter. It's my boy, Charlie Blackstock.
What's up? That's a lot better than my girlfriend dumping me over World of Warcraft intro, so I appreciate the upgrade.
I figured after 5 consecutive sellouts, maybe we'd graduated from telling that story. So thanks for still reminding us, though. It cracks me up every time. And up next, he's the brains behind the blockbuster, the head honcho of hype at Infinigods, the man who just masterminded an $8 million fundraising feat. With his latest juggernaut, King of Destiny, he's not just playing the game, he's poised to own it, turning every smartphone into a saga of success and every tap into a treasure trove. Get ready for the merchant of marketing, the titan of tokens, the emperor of engagement. It's Brad DeSanto.
Dude, let's go. Thank you for the generous intro. And just a big thank you to everybody here. The Wolves, DAO, this group have been so instrumental in Infinigod's growth, and you guys have shown us so much support. So big love. I think, everybody here who's been through a raise process knows that it's an absolute fucking behemoth and a bitch at times. So it feels really good to finally get the news out and be done with that. And now we can just build games and experiences that people love. So big love to everybody here. Big thanks to everybody, and let's get it today.
So happy for you guys. Big congratulations. And morning viewers know this next guest as a charismatic, clever panelist lighting up the nifty morning show, where his words wield the power to shape the pulse of the digital playground. But away from the camera's glare, he delves into the depths of decentralized dueling with his brainchild, Midnight Heist, a groundbreaking, fully on-chain PvP game where every move and every strategy is etched into the blockchain for eternity. But that's not all. He's also a newly minted, coveted Wolves DAO Soulbound token holder, elevating him above the competition in yet another way. Welcome to the panel, the Midnight Mastermind, the honcho of the heist. It's Kicks.
Dude, what's up, Sam? I love you completely changed it up from the first time that I got on the show. So I appreciate that innovation. And just wanted to say that we're 5 episodes away from Gamified 69, and I'd like to pre-book that with you.
You are the first person to point that out, Kicks, so consider your slot booked. I appreciate that forward thinking. Well done, my man. We'll have to do something special for that. I hadn't even thought about it. And up next, seamlessly syncing strategy with scorching skirmishes, he's transformed the terrain of first-person shooter frontiers, firing up fans and fueling frenzied firefights, guiding this game with gravitas, garnering from governing a grand $100 million budget from Twitch Prime. His marksmanship in marketing is as masterful as a sniper's sight. Every bullet blasted ballistic in his arsenal aligns with audacious ambition. But beyond the blazes and barrages, at the day's dusk, he descends into the delightful duty of dad. Step aside, soldiers, and salute the supreme shrapnel sharpshooter. It's the FPS phenom. It's the combat connoisseur. For the first time in months, representing shrapnel, we got Tony V back, baby.
Let's go, GM, everyone. Glad to be back. It's been forever. So stoked to be on Gamified. Love you guys.
It's great to have that patented Tony energy back once again. And ladies and gentlemen, gear up next for a glacial giant, the Sultan of the Snowstorm, the commander of cold fronts, the Blizzard boss himself. He's the polar prince, turning the chilly challenge of game development into a winter wonderland of winds from the frostbitten fields of electronic arts, and now head of gaming at Avalanche. He's the orchestrator of our digital dreams, turning the icy expanse into an arena of exhilaration with a keyboard as his shield and a mouse as his mace. Let's give a frosty welcome to the man who put the cool in controller, the apex of the Avalanche, the custodian of the coolness. It's Ed Chang.
Hello, everybody. I am here to carry this panel like Klay Thompson for the Warriors in the play-in game. For those of you that don't know, he went 0 for 10 in that game. Normally, I do research on the topics beforehand, but today I'm going in blind, just like Koji, except I have no idea what I'm talking about. So it's great to be here. And last thing I'll say is, Knock, you were missed. You know, it was so weird that Gamified was ending on time and I had a chance to speak my mind whenever I wanted to. I missed you, buddy.
Damn, Ed came with the heat.
Oh, I love this.
Absolute bangers already, man. I cannot wait to get into it. And last but not least, this is the lexicon luminary, the literary leviathan, the pint-sized powerhouse of prose and poetry, weighing in at 2.4 pounds. It's the little lizard legend. It's Lambs.
GM, Knock, you were quite missed last week. I think that Faraway news broke right before Gamified or right around it because we mentioned it, and Dub did an amazing impression of you. So if you didn't hear that, you really should go back and listen to his imitation of you because it was pretty fantastic.
And let's salute and celebrate the sublime, the spectacular, the sovereign, and supreme substrate of our stellar saga, the official blockchain of Gamified. It's Avalanche, ensuring that Web3 gaming doesn't suck with its spectacular speed and scalability, skillfully simplifying the sophisticated science of subnets, allowing avant-garde architects and game gurus to craft their cutting-edge creations. It stands as a steadfast sentinel in the storm, driving the dawn of decentralized gaming with a dynamic, durable, and decidedly different approach. And built on Avalanche's shrapnel, a marvel of mayhem meticulously manifested that isn't just redefining the rules of the FPS arena, it's an extraction shooter that's tearing through the terrain of traditional gaming. What makes shrapnel a seismic shift in the shooter genre is the pleasure of gearing up for glory with goods that go beyond the game, where winning means weaving your worth into the very fabric of the future of Web3 gaming's world. So if you're ready to dive into a domain where your daring deeds are duly rewarded and your strategies stretch beyond the screen with every extraction elevating your estate, then it's time to take aim at Shrapnel, the official game of Gamified, which is powered by none other than Stardust. Stardust is lighting the way with its wallets as a service, offering a marvel of modern technology that melts away the mayhem of managing digital assets, making every user's experience smooth as silk. It's not just convenience, it's revolution, redefining the user experience of your game with the touch of a button. This is where projects pivot from potential to powerhouse with the unparalleled prowess of Stardust Wallet and user acquisition alchemy. Thank you to Stardust, the official infrastructure of gamified. Man, I'm just full of gratitude every single time I get the chance to read those off. Huge thank you to the 3 sponsors and everybody that's given us a retweet, dropping comments. We also got 2 whitelists to give away for Cityverse, which I think is going to be one of the big NFT collections that comes out over the next few months. So make sure you're participating in order to potentially get one of those. We're jumping in with topic number 1, $60 million esports tournament breaking records. The previous record was $45 million. My question for the panel, is this Hopium or Copium? The Esports World Cup will feature the world's top clubs and esports athletes in 20, count them, 20 different tournaments that'll run across an 8-week schedule. The prize pool will be divided into 4 distribution categories. There's game championships, MVP awards, qualifiers, and each of the 20 games will have their own prize pools. In addition, there's also $50,000 player bounties that'll be awarded to standout participants in each competition. My question again for you guys, is this hope for the esports circuit, the industry that's been floundering and struggling, or is this copium for people that unfortunately have been on a downward trend for the last couple of years? I'm going to tag in Knock first on this one because I know he always has thoughts on the esports industry.
Dude, this is just so classic esports. It's like, here's a number, it's one tournament, and then you do some digging, and then it's actually 7 different games over the course of 3 weeks, and it's not all distributed, and part of it is bounties, and part of it is prize money, and part of it is something else. Like, this is just classic esports. It's like calling the Fortnite $150 million like pool that they put together for their esports program a single tournament prize pool. No, this does not beat the previous record, which is held by the International, which is a largely community funded event. The more skins you buy, the more players have to unlock. This is multiple events. This is a very long period of time. I think it's cool. I think it's going to be awesome to see. I think that there's plenty of money, and a lot of esports athletes have the opportunity to make a bunch of cash that they probably otherwise wouldn't have. But I don't think that calling this a single tournament prize pool is a genuine move from their end.
All right, appreciate that take. Ed Chang from Avalanche, sending it over to you.
I agree with my good buddy Knock. I think if you're just talking about the prize pool, there's a lot of marketing here because when you actually average it out, there's some distributions to certain teams for co-marketing, all that kind of stuff. It's not a ton of money, but I do think there is hopium here in the sense that, obviously there's the massive fund that they've set aside. And I think it's Saudi Arabia, right, to acquire different companies. They acquired some of the biggest esports properties in ESL and Face It. They acquired Scopely at $5 billion. It's a really big step towards a big investment in gaming. I think this is like one of the first massive activations. So hopefully it'll mean that some of these teams and these publishers and these tournament operators will get a chance to kind of get to know each other and build on top of that. Tournament itself, it is what it is, but I think that it does signal kind of a big step in that right direction for the space.
I do have to say how excited I am that they included StarCraft 2. Not a dead game, by the way, guys. Okay, they included StarCraft 2 as one of those 20. Kicks, I'm sending it over to you for your thoughts. Is this hope or cope for the esports industry?
Man, I think it's hope. And first of all, man, I'm a nerd Twitch streamer. Like I'll hop, not streamer, but I'll hop on Twitch and I've been watching a lot of StarCraft 2 lately. Absolutely love it. Just
My
like love the
boy.
scene. Yeah, and I'm an old school StarCraft player myself, but I think like short term, I like definitely default to Knock and Ed, right? But like when we look long term, we got to think that like esports is like the NFL in like the 70s or the 80s, right? It's nowhere near peak. And I think if you just look generationally, how many people play video games versus people play sports these days, right? Like 10, 20 years from now, if we're looking on that kind of horizon, it's absolutely up only. So like when I see these big prize pools, yeah, there's a grind to it, but people are going to make money. They're going to create that dream for everybody else. Talent's going to rise to the top. Like I'm so bullish on esports, man. What we should do is we all need to form a DAO and buy a fucking esports team because I guarantee 10, 20 years from now, we're going to be like, Kraft, right? Of the Patriots, whatever his name is, right? Or Jerry Jones down south. Like they're sitting pretty good.
I'm so inclined to agree with you on that. It absolutely drives me crazy that I don't have enough money to actually buy an esports organization while everything is down
Me
bad.
too, man. I got a job when I was 26 in New York City. It was at Adore Me, and I was doing their Facebook ads. and they asked like on their thing, like their intro when you meet the whole team, it's like, what do you want? Like, what's your like ultimate goal? And I was like, to own an esports team. And like 50% of people were like, what the fuck is that? 25% were like, oh haha. And 25% like were like, yo, what games do you play? You know what I mean? Like you could tell it was their dream too.
That's amazing. I nominate Knock as El Presidente of our esports organization that we'll own in the future. I'm going to Jerry, then to Charlie, then we'll work our way over to Knock.
Yeah, I think there's a small amount of hope that you can have here. I think, and this is going to get me shit on by like every Web3 person that believes in decentralization, but I think what esports needs is like a hub, and it needs to be a little centralized for a bit, and has one place and one entity that can kind of build up esports, so then that can then be built out around something, right? And hopefully this is a shot at that. I mean, there's definitely the right amount of money involved. There's definitely like the backers that have infinite amounts of money behind it to hopefully make something successful. So yeah, small amount of hope, but not something I'd hold my breath for. Um, if they're putting StarCraft 2 in, maybe I'll just dust off the old Warcraft 3 account and start getting back the skills sharp again so I can enter some of these tournaments. Like StarCraft 2, are you kidding me?
Bro,
It's
I'm
so old,
saying
dude.
$60 million prize pool. Maybe I'll get the old keyboard back out. Maybe the zero
Yeah.
ping Razer, whatever the fuck I used to use. Charlie, tagging you
Yeah.
in.
Let's have a LAN party.
Oh, dude, LAN parties. If esports is able to bring back LAN parties, I'm all fucking in. That's all I want. I had a post about this the other day. I've just been chasing that high from the early high school Halo 2 first LAN parties. That's all I want. So if we can make that happen, that's what needs to exist. But I think I'm fading this pretty hard. I'm not really sure what the future of esports looks like. I think the problem with esports, there's only been one game that, or maybe a couple games, that have really been able to do it with like CS:GO and League of Legends and potentially Dota if you want to include like their big tournaments. But the problem with it is the NFL and all these leagues have so much control over a single sport, and gaming is just such a broader spectrum of like enjoyment and entertainment. And so it's like, yeah, could there be an esports league? It's for sure, but games and gamers in general have such short attention spans. We love a game for 1 week and then move on to the next game. And like, I don't know how you build an esports league around that has a ton of longevity and profitability when gamers are so fickle. So I love the idea of esports. I really want it to be successful, but that's just not the trend I'm seeing with gamers. Gamers play games for shorter and shorter amounts of time. They move on very quickly, and I'm just not sure if this is ever going to be a profitable venture.
Yeah, they move on so quickly as I'm screaming about playing StarCraft 2, which I've been playing since I was 16 years old. I've moved on so fast. Knock, I'm tagging you in, El Presidente of Samified Esports.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many problems with the way that this tournament is set up. I think that there's been a lot of things that are brought up that are valid. One of the problems in esports in general is one, the fact that people just give it a blanket term like, oh, it's esports. Like that doesn't mean anything. What game are you playing? Like you wouldn't just call, oh, you're an NFL player, let's get you on the court with LeBron. Like that doesn't make any fucking sense, but that's the way that a lot of people approach esports. Oh, you play video games, you must be good at all video games at an international level. There's like one dude who that's true for, and it was Psalm. Like it's absurd to me that this is happening. The way that this tournament is structured is actually like a point system based off of organizations. So the games that are confirmed for this are Apex, Counter Strike, Dota, EA Sports, so like the soccer thing, Fortnite, League, Rocket League, StarCraft, Street Fighter, and Tekken. Teams acquire points based off of how their athletes perform in those games. I can tell you right now the list of esports teams worldwide that have an athlete participating at a world class level in all of those games is zero. So I don't know how they're going to score any of this. This doesn't make any sense to me. Then they go on to say 15 of the best teams in the world for CS specifically have been invited. So not only is this not a qualifying event, this is an invite only sort of thing. It's a show match. They're going to put on a great show. It's going to be a ton of fun. It'll be great to see this. The CS tournament has already been classified as tier C, so really it doesn't matter. It's a show match with a bunch of prize money. People will have a bunch of fun, but nobody who's actually playing esports at a high level gives a shit about like the actual placings at this event. I think it's cool. I think it'll be fun to see this many people gathered in one place for an extended period of time, this many events at a relatively high level back to back. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. I don't think anybody who's actually in esports is taking this seriously.
I'm inclined to agree with your earlier point as well. It's a little bit disingenuous to say it's breaking records with the $60 million prize pool whenever we know that the International had a $27 million prize pool for one game just for Dota 2 one year. So to split it among 20 games and all these different teams, it doesn't really feel the same. Koji, I'm tagging you in, brother.
Look, we operate and live in an industry that is all about hype and hype cycles and overinflated bullshit, and we know how well that can actually work and sell things. So I choose to believe. Like let's pump air into this balloon right until it pops, because if anything's going to resurrect esports, it might be this. Like, who knows? It could be anything. So I'm gonna say, yeah, let's just fake it until we make it. And esports is definitely going to be a thing, the fucking biggest thing, and the biggest esport of all is going to be parallel. So watch the fuck out.
You love to see it. We're gonna work our way through these hands, and then we're gonna send it on to the next topic. Ed Chang, I'm going to you, then to Tony from Shrapnel.
This is a tangent, but this idea of a DAO buying an esports team sounds like the worst thing that I've ever heard in my
Oh,
life.
come on, Ed.
Like, imagine like people voting on colors for your esports logo and no one can agree. And then some folks buy enough of the token and then hold the hostage treasury and liquidate everything. And then imagine not being able to agree on a team signing, so you miss deadlines for that stuff. I do think there is a huge opportunity for much more Web3 friendly esports teams, and maybe run by folks who work in the esports space, like Mr. Knock and Kix and folks like that. That's very exciting. But an actual DAO in that instance just sounds like a huge pain in the ass.
Isn't it worth it to talk about like Nouns DAO though here doing like esports?
Yeah, I think they're doing really cool stuff. But remember, it's the DAO voting on giving kind of that esports team the funds to go run it, but it's run by like 4 or 5 guys, right?
Yeah, and a little bit of anecdotal evidence on the Nouns DAO side. We did a 5v5 tournament on My Pet Hooligan. It was a bunch of Web3 creators versus the Nouns DAO esports team, and we absolutely obliterated them. Absolutely obliterated them. And there was money on the line, so they were inclined to care. So that just made me feel like there's no way they're an esports team, because I'm washed up, boy, let me tell you. Tony from Shrapnel, over to you.
Yeah, I on this specific tournament, I think it's another example of what I've talked about before on this space, and that's, I think esports as a business works best when it is really focused on being a marketing vehicle for the products that are being promoted as part of the sport, right? The idea that esports are going to turn into NASCAR or the NFL, and people are going to buy Super Bowl style ads at Super Bowl ad style prices for Twitch stream advertisements in between matches, I think is still pretty farcical. And but where I think we've seen a lot of success with esports is where the community, where the game really empowers the community to go and scale the competitive scene themselves. I don't know how familiar folks are with early League of Legends, but they created what was called a prized events program early on in their esports journey or their competitive journey, and it was basically just like a set of processes internally and sets of software internally that allowed people to self-organize. So like when I was at Amazon, we had like a 10,000 person email list that was like gaming at Amazon. And at one point there were like 17 League of Legends teams that were being funded with like, $1,000 of Riot points here and there to run tournaments. And it was like constant, right? And so I look at like that kind of, and Riot wasn't making money on people like buying ads on the fucking Amazon tournament, right? They were making money because a bunch of gainfully employed, well-paid Amazon people were playing their video game and buying skins. And I think that model is going to continue to be more successful than this, like, let's put a really big number that is quickly dissected by the people that are supposed to care about that really big number as a model. So I mean, I guess I would fade this by virtue of that. I do just like to see people doing cool shit in the competitive space. I wish they would evolve it more towards some of the stuff that I think, like I said, scales a little bit better if you think of it as a marketing vehicle.
Great stuff out of Tony. Jerry, I'm going to send it to you in just a sec. A couple of quick comments. Zach D says, all I heard from Knock was esports players need to get better at multiple genres and stop being one-trick ponies. AE says, not that huge, but still hope esports represents a part of the Web2 gaming industry. We might be in Web3, but still gaming. A win for the gaming industry is a win for all. Jerry, I'm sending it over to you.
Yeah, I think I'd push back pretty hard on that notion that people want to play new games. We just talked about a couple weeks ago how people really don't want to play new games, right? It's 8% of time spent in gaming last year was in new games. People want to play the shit that they've been playing. It's like that uncle you have at every cookout who still wants to listen to Naughty by Nature and then tells you that Drake's like not real hip hop, right? And so I don't think the issue is I don't think the issue is what the game is. I think it's just that nobody's been able to like have the war chest to go through the phases of losing money, right? Which is why this is a good thing that they're doing it in Riyadh, is because they don't give a fuck about money. 60 million to them is something they can do literally hundreds of times a year. So I think if there's a silver lining, it's looking at that and looking at, you don't need the title sponsors, you don't need the ad revenue to come in from commercials run in between. You just need to put on good events that are captivating and show gameplay at the highest level, and hopefully that can finally get net new players into these games, right? Because that's the other problem that's happening within gaming, is that we're all just getting older and playing the same shit, and we're becoming the people that still want to listen to Naughty by Nature. And there's going to be another game that comes through that younger people are going to play, and we'll be the boomers soon, right? So
I
I
just want
think
to
this
say,
is
because I'm up here on stage with you, I don't and never have listened to Naughty by Nature. I just feel like he's like putting on all of us up here.
yeah, Naughty by Nature is fantastic. But take whatever rock band, and apply that to the Pacific Northwest where Tony is at. So yeah, I mean, I think this is, if there's a good thing to look at here, is that one entity who can just eat loss after loss after loss after loss and not bat an eye, and can hopefully run this for a couple years until a sustainable event is built, and then people can take the excitement and the attention that's put on that and then apply that to other things where they may have to go get the title sponsors and the ads and all that stuff, and hopefully a Naughty by Nature halftime show. I think there is a lot to be excited about here, but again, wait and see.
We're going to go through these last two hands, then we're moving on to the next topic. I'm going to Andy Adams behind the Stardust account.
You guys ever like do these spaces and then you have to pull out like a notes app because someone made a point like 12 minutes ago that you want to come back to, and you're like, holy shit, I'm gonna sound like an idiot when they finally get my hand called.
Sorry
That's
about
me
that.
every time. So let me go pull up my app because I'm a fucking boomer now who can't keep track of anything. Just a
Probably listen
second.
to so much Naughty by Nature.
See?
Exactly. No, but my literally the first thing I wrote down here is agree with Jerry. I'm a curmudgeon. I'm gonna play Dota till I die. So I'm with Jerry on that. That people are gonna lock into their games and will eventually. I think it'd be interesting to have like more genre specific games like the, I don't know, Call of Duty, CS:GO, like crossover and have like leagues around like big pinnacle kind of pillar type games for that, and they kind of share similar stuff. Anyway, the other thing, going back to what Tony was talking about, everything is an ad network. Totally agree with that, about that focus. And then last thing, I'm not making any big points here, I'm just kind of agreeing with people, but Sam, for if you guys want to talk about the whole esports like with Web3 DAO stuff, I would love to be able to pull in, I could pull in PPD, if you guys know Peter Pan Dam. He's heavily involved in like Nouns DAO and is professional Dota champion. So I think he would be really awesome to add to this conversation about kind of like the future of esports and where Web3 could get more involved.
That would
Well, it
be
sounds like,
absolutely sick. Sorry, Lems, go
but
ahead.
to be fair, it sounds like Sam, you want nothing to do with Namsda because you called them all trash already.
Well, his curation of athletes might be trash in Web3, but a lot of things in Web3 are trash. It doesn't make them bad. Shout out to every.
Yeah. Whatever, Sam. All right.
All right, knock, take it away. Oh, real quick, Hantao in the comments says knock is wrong. That is all. So your rebuttal and then final statement before we move on.
Doesn't matter what I say, Hantel's going to say I'm wrong, so there's no rebuttal needed. I mean, I guess that is the rebuttal, because then he's going to say I'm wrong for saying I'm wrong. Here's the real problem with esports. Most of the early days of esports was modeled after traditional sports. And that meant selling jerseys, selling localized products, having people become loyal to you and your organization. That's not how esports plays out. Unlike traditional sports, where I'm a New Jersey Devils fan, my family are all Maple Leafs fans, right? Unlike traditional sports where generations of Biamontes have been Maple Leafs fans, we always talk about how shit the Leafs are. We've seen all these different players come in, perform well, then leave, and we go, oh man, remember when he was on the Leafs? We're still going to watch the Leafs even when our favorite players leave. That's not how things operate in traditional esports. And I'll give you a real life example of it. In the first 6 European Champion Series of Fortnite, 11 Gaming, which is the company that I founded, won 4 of the first 6. We still hold 20% of total European championships since Fortnite became a competitive game. The guy who won most of them with us, his name is Tayson. He now plays for Falcons, which is based out of the Middle East. He has 5 titles over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. 4 of them were won under the 11 Gaming banner. When people say Tayson, they say Falcons Tayson. They say Falcon Tayson has won 5 championships. They don't mention 11 because in esports, you latch on to particular athletes. You latch on to people that you like and you follow them from team to team to team. Very few people find an esports org that they love and stick and follow that org through generations of talent coming through and leaving. That doesn't happen in the traditional sporting world. All of that to say, even if it were to happen that way, it still takes 20 or 30 years for Major League Sports to spin up. The MLS, Major League Soccer North America, launched in 96. It's just now becoming globally popular only because Miami is playing fantasy fucking soccer and signing in all of the best players of the last 15 years into one title in an MLS league where they're playing against kindergartners. And now people are starting to pay attention to Miami and people care about Toronto and they care about Salt Lake. They don't care about the individual players. They're starting to have loyalty to those teams. The oldest esports organizations are only like 20, 25 years old, and that's not within a hyper localized league. Esports is by nature a different beast than traditional sports. Tony's nailed it. The only 2 teams that are doing something, at least from my perspective, right now is TSM because they're literally using their League of Legends presence to funnel people into Blitz and everything else that they do. And you see teams like 100 Thieves taking stabs at this. They bought Jubilee, they bought High Ground, which is a computer peripheral company. These teams are using esports athletes as top of funnel for marketing products that they own. That's the path forward for esports. It'll never be like the Toronto whatever versus the Salt Lake whatever in esports. We tried that in the CDL and the Overwatch League. Both of those leagues were so bad that they've refunded teams literally tens of millions of dollars and then gave them an extra stimmy of like $3 to $5 million a piece to say, don't leave now that we've refunded you. Please stay around for a little while. Hyper localized teams and loyalty to individual teams doesn't work. That's why people are going to go into Riyadh, they're going to make a bunch of money, and then they're going to completely forget that tournament ever happened.
It makes me so sad to know that you're correct, Knock. It makes me so sad. We're big shout out to everybody that's retweeting the space, dropping comments, etc. Going to give away one of those Cityverse whitelists soon. Make sure you get it in the next 10 minutes or so, maybe after the next topic. But we're moving on. Can Nyan Heroes overthrow Overwatch? Nyan Heroes was a top 30 most played game on the Epic Games Store while they had their alpha live. They garnered over 200,000 downloads and an active user base of 35,000 every day, and 1.3 million registrations for its missions feature. And lastly, it attracted 641,000 unique wallets. Overwatch 2 has been widely panned. Nobody seems to like it as much as they liked the original. Is this an opportunity for Nyan Heroes to slide in here and overthrow a massive mainstay in the hero shooter genre? Lems, your hands up.
All right, I will say Nyan Heroes had a solid pre-alpha. It was a fun game. They had some pretty impressive metrics, but I think to try and take on Overwatch is like a pipe dream. Just kind of pump the Hopium bags realistically. I loved Overwatch 1. I'm not a fan of Overwatch 2, barely play it anymore, but it's still got a lot of players that play it. Like I just pulled up the metrics and it's got almost 25 million monthly active users and there's still like 5 million daily active players, and that's actually on the incline again. So that's like, it's still a pretty successful game despite all the FUD and the hate that it gets on Steam. I think Nyan Heroes has great potential to be a successful game. It's not discredited from doing that, and it could do very, very well. But to flip Overwatch is a very lofty goal, so I don't think we'll be achieving that one.
Send it over to Jerry next.
Yeah, listen. All right, I appreciate hyperbole. I sometimes am known to embellish numbers and statistics and stories. Um, but Nyan Heroes, which is a fun game and has a great team around them, and did a fucking bang up job with marketing. It's a pipe dream, right? It's not going to happen, and it's definitely not going to happen like anytime soon. You look at a 10+ year, well, I guess Overwatch probably not 10 years old, but something that's been built for at least 10 years, right? Something that has had everything come out around it, the shorts and the animated series that Blizzard was doing. There's so much of a head start that it's like trying to start it's like going into war with World War II technology like today, right? So is it a fun game? Are the numbers pretty impressive? Like legitimately, yes. Is it going to supplant like the industry leader in that genre? No, it's not, and it's not going to come close. But that doesn't mean that they can't use where they're at as a launch pad for building and continuing to improve on the game and making sure that it's going to be in those conversations, right? But you're competing against a huge company with a huge war chest with a massive head start, and you know, I think the game was fun, but for where it's at and where it needs to be to get there, a whole lot of things need to happen, and those things don't typically happen, in gaming.
Tony from Shrapnel.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with a lot of what Jerry said, and I want to just say that like I I think that flip and be more successful can be a lot of things. And what I mean by that is I sit here in a studio with some of the most talented human beings that work in the video game industry, many of whom launched a title called Bioshock Infinite that was one of the most beloved and best-selling titles of its generation, and it literally murdered Irrational Studios. Like making Bioshock Infinite killed the studio because it took a bazillion years and it was $1 billion, and they just could never make enough money to pay it back. And so when I see how Blizzard has invested or um, uh, built the Overwatch IP thus far, and with some of their recent acquisitions and moving to Microsoft, and getting a lot more locked down on what their where their money's coming from, and how they're spending it. I could see a product like Nyan Heroes being more successful through the lens of um, uh, profit to loss ratio or efficiency of spend. I think there's a lot of metrics by which or heuristics you could look at and view something as successful. The first Web3 game that gets 10 million monthly average users is going to be insane, wild success, and everyone's going to be a bazillionaire that works for that company. And so, I don't know that Nyan Heroes is going to be that, but I bet that they build a business that makes tens of millions, maybe $100 million a year, a lot more profitably than a lot of the AAA studios that are out there making $50 to $100 million a year businesses. Like I remember working on Madden Mobile. It was about $100 million a year business when I was there, and there was like a 78 people working on just Madden Mobile. It didn't include like people like me on shared teams like marketing, and just I look at stuff like that, and again the profitability there is just a lot greater with a team like Nyan.
Fantastic points. Got to give a shout out to Vidar. He was supposed to be on the panel today. He DM'd me saying that sorry he passed out because he was also sick like I was, and he had a quote a hot date with his bathroom floor unquote. Charlie, over to you.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that this like notion that like I think we've just become so ingrained being in Web3 and potentially seeing like many disappointments, unfortunately, that we feel like Web3 can't compete with Web2 for whatever reason. I know it's really outlandish to think a game from Web3 could surpass Activision or Blizzard and surpass Overwatch, but I would challenge that. Like there's a lot of great games coming out. Technical barriers are basically getting like destroyed by like AI and advancements in engineering. a lot of these things like Overwatch and World of Warcraft, they were impossible to surpass because it's so hard to build out the infrastructure, the engineering. It took years and years to make these games. That's not the case anymore. Very small teams can make incredible games at a very quick rate, and AI tools are only making it easier. We're going to see a one person game that's going to be $1 billion game. It's going to be made by one guy with AI tools that's going to have millions and millions of users, and it's going to be a one man game studio. That's just what's going to happen in the near future. And that's something that like is going to happen, I think, very soon. And so we'll see AAA style games coming out with a year of development time, not 5 or 6 years. And that's where like this tooling in the space is headed. So yeah, I think it's outlandish or it's far fetched or a stretch, but I do think it's possible for these Web3 games to get really hot and get a lot of traction and surmount like what I think are more stagnant and slipping brands. And so I'm really excited by Web3 for the pace at which it's moving. I just want to challenge people when they think of these titans. The titans might actually become, a hindrance to that business in the future and not a strength. So just food for thought.
Yeah, well said. There's also a great comment from chill.x. He says Nyan Heroes needs iconic characters like Genji, Roadhog, Sigma, etc. Better map structure. The spawn camping is something else, and work on the story. I agree really heavily, Chill. I'm not sure if they, intended to have this in place yet or not for the alpha, but their characters basically seem like, oh, like the light agile one and then the heavy one, and they're just bigger or smaller variations of each other. There's like no flavor at all on the characters besides like, oh, there's a cat inside, which is cool for about 5 seconds. I'm sending over to Brad Santo from Infinigods.
Yeah, I think we need to be fair here. If you're asking, will Nyan beat Overwatch in a year or two? I mean, of course not. You have a game that's in pre-alpha going against a decade-old product from one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. Let's be realistic. But I think the fact that we're even having this conversation, and that aspiration, if you think back to a year or two ago, like we were even like, our game's playable. Will they have 1,000 active users? I mean, the fact that we do have an aspiration for a game like Nyan to usurp an Overwatch or a CS:GO or a game of that caliber, is just, I think, just shows progress on its own. And I think Charlie makes a really great points about just the speed of development, especially with AI coming into play. But I think the fact that Nyan, is so enjoyable and so playable, even in a pre-alpha slice, is really bullish for that game and that team. I think the IP criticisms are super valid, and I think that typically will come after gameplay that's sticky and addicting. So I have no doubt that team will invest in that side of the business once they get the gameplay down. But I think, if it's not Nyan, I do think, there will be a team that comes out of it. It could be Shrapnel. Shout out to you guys that, does usurp a game of that caliber, especially, in Overwatch 2 that, has been declining in favor. The space is ripe for disruption. People are looking for new, fresh spins. So I say, why not to Nyan? And at the very least, I think it's fun to root for that team, and I'm hoping they do it.
Great stuff. We're going to work our way through the last two hands and then move on from this topic. But Cairo in the audience says, for a first iteration, Nine Heroes did really well, but it's still very all in caps early. You have to give the team time to cook. And the fact that they did what they did is a really bullish sign for crypto gaming and the studio's future. Graslow also chimes in from Oldor saying, totally agree with Charlie Blackstock. The opportunity for small teams has never been greater to topple the titans of gaming. You'll love to hear it. Kicks, I'm going to you, then Knock is going to finish up the topic.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, I mean, first of all, on like the AI front, I mean, I think like the technologies, seriously, I'm not joking, a year or two away from like it streamlining so much of the development. Right now, we're like jerry rigging like three AI tools together. So we have Mid Journey into another tool, but we're literally going from Mid Journey, like cyberpunk art assets to fully rigged 3D models, and there's about like 4 to 8 hours of like human hand holding between that, but we're probably a year or two from like away from you like prompting in like I want this 3D asset and getting it like 90% of the way there, which is like cutting the cost by like 90%. So the amount of innovation is going to be insane. And I always just think about like Counter-Strike. Like Counter-Strike doesn't have the best graphics, right? It doesn't have like the best like shooting mechanics, right? But like when you look at the amount of money going through the digital assets that they have, it's absolutely massive, right? And it's not using Web3 at all, which creates so much friction when it comes to trading these things, selling these things. Like the whole market behind it. Like, I don't know. I believe to my core that in the next 3 to 4 years, there's a game that can break out in that kind of way and have the like what we talk about with Web3, which is like true ownership of your assets for all of these players. And it's going to be like a red pill to all of them. It's going to be a click, and they're going to like realize like the power of this. And I mean, that's going to be massive. Like, there's literally, I'm pretty sure there's an L2 blockchain for Counter Strike Go skins, right? Which is like technically like real world assets when you think about like what they're having to do to get it in there. And it's like, come on, guys, we're so fucking close. But the developers won't like make that jump, which would unlock just so much. And we're so close, guys. We're under 5 years from like those types of games being integrated into Web3. And honestly, it's a bigger use case than everything out there. Like, I don't hate on meme coins, but it's meme coins are fun. Have like fucking cook on them. People make a lot of money on them. But like gaming where you own the digital assets, I sold my World of Warcraft character in 2009. In 2009, that's 15 years ago. But I had to like sell it on eBay, and it was sketchy as fuck. And it was like, here's my password, dude. And I promise I won't hack it back or like call in Blizzard and like reclaim it. You know what I mean? Like, come on, we're so fucking close. Bridge the gap, and we're there.
My childhood dreams finally coming true. If we could only bridge the fucking gap. Knock, I'm giving you the final word.
Yeah, I got to give some housekeeping before I dive into this. One, Overwatch 2 doesn't exist. It's Overwatch, but they named it Overwatch 2.
Facts.
Literally, all of the promises of Overwatch 2 were scrapped. The only thing that has changed is that they now monetize differently because they promised they wouldn't monetize through microtransactions in the way that they currently are in Overwatch 1. So they slapped the number 2 beside it, and now they're rinsing you for all your money. So that sucks. Number two, that blockchain that is making transactions for CSGO is literally just recording CSGO ledger. I'm not going to name names here, but it's literally the equivalent of me going to Amazon, finding a seller, recording all of the sales that seller makes, putting it on my blockchain and say, look, my blockchain has $400 million of transaction volume over the last 6 months. It's borderline fraudulent. So back to the original question, I just wanted to get that out. Nyan is a lot of fun. It's really well polished. I got the opportunity to kind of smack Jerry around not too long ago when we were at GDC or in New York. It was a lot of fun. It's actually a quite polished game. I'm really impressed with what they've done. But let's be real here for a second. The Overwatch League just refunded 20 teams the equivalent of what Nyan Heroes has raised. 20 esports organizations who are participating in the Overwatch leagues got debts anywhere between 10 and like $25 million, either refunded outright or forgiven in total. They have a wash of $250 million just within their esports league alone. So we're not even playing remotely close to the same game. Overwatch has been around for a decade. It has sat in the top 10 to 15 on Twitch and on YouTube in terms of watch time for that entire period of time. It's a game that you don't just create a game haphazardly and upset. It's just not going to happen that way. Part of the reason why it's sat there, and part of the reason why most of the games that are in the top 10 in terms of watch time, is because they're really well done from a streamer perspective. And streamers don't like changing game because it creates a massive risk in their ability to bring in cash. If I am known for one particular game, I am literally never going to leave that game, because if I do, I risk losing my audience. And if I lose my audience, I lose my livelihood. And that is a real thing that has happened within the space. Overwatch is responsible for two of the biggest streamers that exist across all games, across all platforms, in XQC and Tim the Tatman. If you extend it further, guys like Moon Moon and ML7 are from the Overwatch ecosystem, and they continue to play that game for the same reason, right? It's where their users are, it's where people that are familiar with them want to pay attention to. Overwatch has a 10-year head start. I think it's dangerous for us that every time a Web3 game comes up and shows some promise, we pit it against the absolute best of the best that exists in the traditional Web2 space, because it's unfair for those games who are trying to build. It's unfair for games who are in early access. And honestly, it kind of makes all of us look stupid for every single time a game comes up and looks half decent. We're like, it's going to kill the king. Paragon could not kill League of Legends, right? There's 100 different games like League and Dota that tried to do it with way more funding from way more serious teams that weren't able to do it. I don't think it's fair to pin this on a team like Nyan. Let them build what they're building. Let's have fun playing what is a really good and polished game, and let's see what happens. But let's stop pitting them against Overwatch. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous that people are like, Nyan's gonna kill Overwatch. There's not a
Knock, I
chance.
don't think you know what AAA means, bro. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, bro, Paragons was the best MOBA of all time. Me and all my homies agree. Tony, I'll give you the final word.
I'll keep it real brief. I always like to tell this story, and like I said, I'll keep the story real brief about the Overwatch League whenever anyone brings it up. And that is when I was at Amazon working on Twitch Prime, I will just never forget the conversations that we had around funding the Overwatch League. Like the three-handed handshake horse trade that we did was like basically the Overwatch and World of Warcraft teams, I think it was, were like, we will never work with Twitch Prime and put any of your bullshit in our video game ever. Like that was their starting point. And we got from there to we'll give you like exclusive characters and pet mounts and shit. But the way that we did that was we they basically said we need to make this Overwatch League thing a thing. So we said, great, we won't pay you for the content that your team hates talking about. We'll just give you 20 or 30 or 40 million dollars for the Overwatch League, and then you go make that happen. It was like Mike Morheim and his wife level conversations that where this was happening, and it was just wild. I just remember thinking to myself like this is never going to be a scalable business if like if the way they're raising money is by basically saying to companies, hey, you want this other thing that we have desperately, so you should give us a lot of money for this thing that you have no desire in, like whatsoever. Like we didn't want any of it.
Man, if you ever get the opportunity, make sure you sit down and get some more stories out of Tony from his time working on Twitch Prime because they're all absolutely incredible. Knock, the hand is back up. I'll give you 15 seconds.
Yeah, just the only other thing that I wanted to mention, I was there at the beginning of the start of the Overwatch League. We had the opportunity to grab a team. It was something that we passed on and another person in Toronto did. That back then, they were bringing in people like the Kraft family and the Wilk family, like major sports teams owners, to get involved within this ecosystem because Overwatch had legs and they came from a reputable giant in the gaming space. We are talking about two games that sit in entirely different universes. Again, I don't think it's fair to like be comparing Nyan or any Web3 game in their current state to something like Overwatch.
Fair points. All right, we move on. I'm giving number one whitelist for Cityverse to none other than Pawn in the comments, dropping us retweets, etc. We got one more. If anybody else wants to win in the second half of this show, big shout out to Pawn. Appreciate you, man. And behold, the behemoth, the bastion, the bedrock, it's Avalanche. The colossus of the crypto climate stands unshaken as it slices through icy skepticism like a scorching sword, cutting a crystal clear path through the blizzard of wilderness. Avalanche is not just a platform, it's the pathfinder, a pioneer, a prodigy, and it's the official blockchain of gamified. With a valor and vigor, Avalanche ventures valiantly into the very vortex of volatility. It's not just a ledger, it's the lodestar leading us through the labyrinth of the unknown, the light guiding us to the lands of logic and lucidity. And amplify your applause and acclaim for the electrifying game sponsor, Shrapnel, the paramount, the pinnacle, the prime official game of gamified. Shrapnel's not merely a game, it's a supernova, a spectacle, a cataclysm of creativity, a tidal wave of tactical triumphs. It's where pixels and prowess fuse into a furnace of ferocity, forging a frontier of feverish fun. March your mouse on over to shrapnel.com, the digital domain where dreams don the dog tag of destiny, and the next STX will be live in the future. So make sure you get an operator, an extraction pack, whatever you can to make sure you can take part in that. And how could we forget Stardust, the official infrastructure of gamified? Feast your eyes on their wallets as a service tooling, a magical mechanism making metaverse management a breeze. This invisible, ingenious innovation offers a white label wonder, weaving Web 2 simplicity with the wizardry of Web 3, with over 150 chains at your command, including all EVMs like Avalanche, Sui, Solana. Stardust stands as the supreme steward in your in-game gold and the guardian of your gamers' gains. And worry not about the wily ways of the web. Stardust safeguards the sanctity of your player's stash. shouldering the logistics and the liability. You love to hear it. We're jumping in with one of my favorite topics today, bullish or bearish. Yuga is selling its intellectual properties to Faraway. Big shout out to GamesGG and Eliza for this great article. In a significant move shaking up the Web3 gaming industry, she wrote, Yuga Labs announced its sale of heavy metal to other IPs to Faraway this week, with Faraway now taking ownership of the intellectual properties and most of the associated NFT collections. Mutant themed city builder Serum City, heavy metal, sewer passes, other side vessels, and other side maras, among others. Despite this, the Coda collection still remains under Yuga Labs' control. So, is Yuga selling these intellectual properties and collections to Faraway bullish or bearish for Yuga and the games themselves? Koji, I'm sending it to you first, brother.
Yeah, I just put my hand up because I was just thinking to myself, if somebody wants to buy Parallel, uh, hit me up in the DMs, because it could be very bullish. No, is it bullish or bearish? I mean, look, I think that like we're at a point where kind of like the esports thing that we were talking about. You guys may be starting to realize that making games isn't so easy, and maybe we weren't a games company after all. Is that bullish or bearish? It depends on how you look at it. I mean, I think they did a pretty fucking good job when it comes to being a lifestyle brand. Now, they decided to pivot out of that because people wanted utility for Ape, or I don't know, whatever it is. And Knox gonna tell me I'm all wrong in a second because I saw his hand fly up there. But like, honestly, like maybe just stick to the girl you brought to the dance. Like it was working for you before. Just keep doing that and leave the games to the I was gonna say the experts, but the sort of lucky amateurs, please.
Sort of lucky amateurs. Oh my god, knock over to you.
At some point, we have to turn Koji's like self-deprecation into like I don't know. The man is like humble bragging. No, I'm kidding. But I actually agree with what Koji said. I think I'll take a little bit of a different approach here. I actually think that this is bullish on all fronts. One, Koji nailed it. I think Yuga has realized that Yuga is the gaming part of Yuga was a little bit of a distraction, and their brands and their lifestyles probably suffered a little while over the last little bit. And I think that they need to refocus in on the IP that they've created, the Bored Apes ecosystem with the kennels, the things that they've just purchased from Proof. I think it's important that they focus in on those things. And frankly, it's what a lot of people have been screaming about on Twitter for the last little while, right? It's focus on what you're good at, focus on the brands. You don't care about apes anymore. So the idea that Yuga makes a move that allows them to free up more bandwidth and focus on apes and focus on their IP, and people think it's a bad move is just like further proof that nobody really knows what they want. They just want to read headlines and be mad about something. Is it bullish or bearish for the games itself? Well, I've said simplified and on Twitter, Yuga wasn't building these games. The games were being built by Faraway. So nothing changes for the games at all. If anything, Faraway just has a little more creative control with Heavy Metal and Legends of Mara. They built those games to begin with. So nothing changes from the perspective of the game. Now, where I'm actually a little confused, and I don't, it's still a little unclear, is to what this relationship between Faraway and Yuga actually looks like. Because now Faraway owns the Serum City IP, they own Heavy Metal, they own Legends of the Mara, games that they created, games that leveraged Yuga IP, games that they built for Yuga, but they're still contracted to build things like Dookie Dash, which Yuga still owns. So there's this little bit of like an incestuous relationship between Faraway and Yuga. Not to mention that Spencer left from the Yuga ecosystem, is now running gaming or working in a C-suite position in the Faraway ecosystem. It makes me wonder if this is maybe a little bit of like a Disney licensing move. Disney tried to build games in-house. It was something that they tried to do for a very long time. They realized that they couldn't. They licensed out a bunch of IP. I think that there's a lot of information that we don't have about the relationship between Faraway and Yuga. There was a line in the article that made me a little confused, saying that like Yuga is still going to be heavily involved and Yuga is going to have some say and they're going to work to make sure that what Faraway does still integrates within the Yuga ecosystem. So I think it's still, the waters are a little muddy here as to what's actually happening under the hood. But from a game perspective, literally nothing changes. Yuga was distracted. They decided to divest from a couple of those properties that Faraway already built and was running from the beginning. So nothing changes there. They now focus more on the Bored Ape brand. It's what everybody has been screaming about forever. Yuga realizes that gaming is hard. They give it to the people who know how to do gaming. They realize that they need to focus in on their IP. So they're focusing in on their IP. I don't see how this is literally anything than bullish for all parties involved. If you are a game fan and you bought into the Yuga ecosystem because you like games, you should be really fucking happy now because the guys who are making the game have full control. If you wanted the Yuga IP and you were upset that they weren't focusing on it, well, then you're still happy as well. I don't see how this is anything but bullish for all parties involved.
All right. Shady Shiba in the comments says, please, for the love of God, do me a solid and tell everybody that it's Nyan Heroes and not Nyan Heroes. If anybody's ever seen the meme that this is actually based on, you will never forget that it's Nyan Heroes because it literally goes Nyan, 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 Nyan. But apparently nobody's seen that fucking video except for me. So now I just call it Nyan Heroes like the rest of you dumbasses. I'm going to send it over to Jerry and then to Ed Chang back on topic about Yuga selling intellectual properties.
Yeah, I hope I never see that video because that fucking pissed me off when you said that at that like decibel level. That hurt my ears. No, yeah, sorry, Shady Shiba. I'm with Knock, man. This is bullish like on every single front, right? Knock touched on a lot of those things. I can skip right past those, but I think what you are most excited about if you're a Bored Ape holder is the refinement of getting back to getting Allegri out of there and getting the people who built the IP up to what it was as a lifestyle and culture brand and focusing back in on that, right? If Supreme or like Antisocial Social Club started to make video games, we would all go, "What the fuck are those guys doing?" Right? But in Web3, we were like, "These guys are geniuses. This is the best move ever. Like, we can't wait for them to do it." And it obviously like didn't work out, right? I think if you are a holder of assets that just got acquired, heavy metal, like you should be super excited that Faraway is now building without anybody in their fucking way. This happens all the time when you get like two parties involved in something. The famous, publisher and studio dynamic that happens is nobody can agree on anything. So if you have an inkling that that might have been happening and that people from Yuga were getting in the way of the game development process with heavy metal in put what will be in Serum City, you should be excited that there's no blockers now. You can see Faraway build something that they control outright. And I still have a lot of concerns as well. To me, I still think these guys are like super in bed. Like I think this is a partnership between two companies that runs so deep that it's almost a little bit scary. Even though I believe in both teams, right? I believe in Faraway. I really like Faraway as a team. I really like Yuga. I think them having so many ties with one another is a little bit concerning for me. But you should be excited that Faraway is building Faraway controlled games now, and you should be excited that Yuga is now focused on lifestyle, culture, and ultimately like their flagship product, which is going to be the other side, which is a totally different team, but that needs to be focused on, and they should be solely focused on those things and those things alone.
I love that this panel is just a bunch of gaming people being like, please, for the love of God, Yuga, go back to fucking making $40,000 PFPs and luxury bullshit that doesn't need any utility and leave the games to the gamers. Ed Chang, head of gaming at AVAX, curious about your thoughts.
I'm first curious if Knock was like a comms professional in a different life or a different career. If SBF had Knock on his team, I don't think he'd go to jail. Like, this is really impressive, man. Like, let's really think about this. Like, not that long ago, I feel like we were talking about, oh, why is Yuga doing this? Yuga do that. And Knox comes in, it's like, if you only knew like how big of a brand Yuga is, we're always talking about them. You don't even know what's coming. And then now they don't know what they're doing on gaming, and they exit, and he's just like, "This is bullish. You don't even know how bullish this is, right?" Like, I think if Yuga had some strong tailwinds that we could point to right now, like I could be like, "Yo," I mean, I do think it's that good for the Yuga brand because they can focus, but I don't really know where they focus to, right? Like floor price on these NFTs is going the wrong way. I don't know of any like significant announcements. Nothing they've done with Proof. Other side sounds like a mess. And the thing is, if they were bullish on gaming still, why would they fully hand it over to somebody else, right? We obviously don't know the terms of that deal, but it's not like those games were super successful in their own right. They were still leveraging to Knox's point, the Yuga brand, the Yuga socials, like certain NFTs and crossover IP. Now with Faraway kind of fully owning that, I think that's difficult, right? And I see the Disney parallel, but the difference is Disney had many bidders for any of that IP, right? I worked at EA, like Star Wars, Marvel, everybody wanted to create games around that. You know, the same studio that was basically, you were basically paying to run these games, taking that over, like, I don't know that's bullish. Yuga has raised hundreds of millions of dollars across, capital fundraising rounds, across NFT sales. Faraway has raised a total of $30 million. You can't tell me this is like these games are in better hands and have way more resources to do what they're doing, right? So, and also, like, what is Yuga going to say? We want to distance ourselves and totally leave this space. No, when you break up with someone, you're like, we're still friends. We care about each other, blah, blah, blah. Like, of course. So I think it's bearish for the games. Could be bullish for Yuga, but I just don't think that these games kind of stand on their own. I think it's tough.
Imagine being one of Ed Chang's ex-girlfriends, man. I don't think I would ever recover.
They're all looking in the mirror going, I will never financially recover from this. Kicks, so send it over to you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm like kind of bummed because like with their like war chest, I always just like was like, man, like Yuga could like really crush this. They could really knock it out of the park, you know. But they kind of were in this weird spot where they were like, paying other game developer companies to like build the games, right? So that kind of naturally makes them a publisher, but they weren't really like, I don't know. Here's the thing. What I know at the end of the day, I mean, it sucks that they're out of gaming, and because I always want more people in the gaming space. But if we look at what happened, right, they got rid of the old CEO. Garga's in charge, and he's fucking burning down the crops that they don't need. You know what I mean? He's lighting fire to the stuff that like doesn't fit into his vision. And honestly, like I think that's a badass CEO. You know what I mean? Like I think he like hopped in, he took the realms, and he's like, I want to win. I want to win and I want Yuga to win, and these are like the really tough decisions that I have to make in order to like put us on the path to winning. So like as a Web3 gaming maxi, I'm disappointed because like I would have loved to have seen it succeed. Also, I think now other side is a little bit disjointed, right? Because they're gonna have to like hard pivot that into more of like a community metaverse and a gaming metaverse. But I got a lot of respect for Gargant because I think like he hopped back in the helm and he's like, I got to make real tough decisions to like turn this ship around and be a winner. And so like I respect them for that. Like I can't fud that. Like that's a baller move. That's a ballsy move, and I wish them success with the new direction.
That is a fair point. No use in doing something that isn't working for longer just because sunk cost fallacy. I'm going to Charlie, then to Bride of Santo.
Yeah, I loved with everything that Kicks just said at the end of that. Like, I think unless you've owned or run an NFT project, it's really hard to understand like how trapped you can feel by your community at times. Like, there's so many times you want to make pivots or make choices that you think are best for the company, and you just feel absolutely trapped by like the fear of your community. You feel like the hatred, the DMs. Like it's really scary. Like it's scary to build in public. It's scary to face 10,000 people shouting at you who all think they know better than you, and it's a really tough move. And so I think you got to like shed this stuff was probably a really hard decision. Everybody looks to them as like leaders in the space. I think I want them to succeed because the entire gaming and Web3 space is better off if there is someone who can take off soon. Like the NFT market, like Ed said, is kind of trending in the wrong direction right now. And you really just need kind of someone to stand out in front, like Bored Apes did and CryptoPunks did last cycle. You need people to have belief that there's a tremendous upside here. And so I respect the move. I'm curious to see how it plays out. But I do think it's a smart move because it's like when you're building a product. You have to shed the things that aren't working. It's all about focusing on the things that you think can work and not spread yourself too thin and find traction where it is. So I'm bullish because it seems like they're shedding weight, but we'll see. I guess as a time will tell type situation.
I gotta go to the comments real quick where we have I lost it. Oh, Guy Lambert says Yuga Labs had its Hannah Montana era, but times have changed and now it needs to become Miley Cyrus for the weirdest analogy of the day. But appreciate you, Guy. Bride DeSanto, over to you.
It's funny. I was going to go somewhere similar, but it feels like they went through this weird, awkward teenage identity crisis, and I totally agree with Kix. Like, I think of it as like the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Leo takes the flamethrower and just burns everyone down. I think good leaders make hard decisions, and I think cut bait when they need to. It feels like they've uprooted the entire Allegri era. And I think, when you look at Garga, he's been more visible on Twitter, more vocal. You see Gordon popping back up. It feels like they're really trying to reclaim, what they founded. And I think things drifted so far from that original vision that they almost got lost in the sauce. And if I think of myself as a founder, it's almost like I don't even recognize this club that I created anymore. Everybody hates me. We're putting in all this work, spending all this money, and then we're just getting fucking yelled at every day. Like, this just sucks. Like, the vibes, the crypto culture, that we started just are gone. So, I don't blame them. Like, I think ripping things out, giving them, to a new capable home makes a ton of sense. I wouldn't be surprised if they just gave the IP away to Faraway and didn't sell it. That makes sense to me. And it lets the gamers focus on gaming, and it lets Yuga get out of this like quasi shitty mobile gaming narrative. Focus on their big metaverse play. Other side obviously has been in the works for a while. They're committed to it, and it becomes that plus just culture and crypto and Clubhouse. And I think that's what they've always done well. Play the hits, make irreverent games and titles like Dookie Dash that are easy to spin up. Their audience actually likes. Their audience they're not mobile gamers. They're not gamers. They like stupid irreverent shit. And I think catering to your audience and catering to who knows you best is really what they've been missing. You've seen all of the OGs in that community feel alienated. They've sold. They've changed their PFPs, and I think to Kix's point, I think BAYC is such a beacon for the space. I hope they succeed. I hope they reclaim glory because it really is great for everybody. It's great for ETH. It's great for PFPs, and it's just a lot of fun when they do well. I'm a little sour that it's all ordinals and all Solana. It feels like ETH has just been like thrown to the wayside. So we'll see what happens. But I think having punks and apes do well is ultimately bullish. But I think you see it with Frank. I think you see it with Luca. You have these founders that are the heartbeats of their companies and their projects, and things will go awry at times, but the good ones will pivot and find their way. So confident in Garga, and very excited to see what they do with renewed focus.
Yeah, great stuff out of Bride DeSanto, but we've come to expect nothing less. I'm sending it over to last but not least, the Yahweh of Yuga, the Baron of the board, the defender of apes. I don't know. I don't have a third one. Knock over to you.
That was wild. Okay, so first of all, yes, Ed, my girlfriend's actually in PR, and when I was running SOAR, I had plenty of PR training. So, yes, I am trained. Yes, I prepare for these things. I know exactly what's going on. Jokes aside, I know that over the last like year or so, a lot of the times will come across as somebody who's like a massive fanboy of the Yuga ecosystem, and it's actually less about Yuga and more about what I think is a major problem, both in Web3, but more broadly speaking, like North American culture. We like to read headlines. We like to form opinions off of a real lack of information, and then we will not change those opinions. And in the past, the opinion has been Yuga isn't communicating what they're doing, even though here's 17 documents of them communicating exactly what their plans are. Yuga doesn't care about games. They have no vision except for, the documents that say, here's our vision. This is the way that it's going to work. There are legitimate things that we should be criticizing companies like Yuga, like Azuki, like everybody, like Magic Eden for, right? We should be criticizing things that should be criticized, but let's educate ourselves a little bit more. It's ignorant to say things like they have never communicated what their plans were. Even in this case, right? People are like, Yuga has backed out of, video games. They've realized that making video games is too hard, so they're abandoning it and they're shipping it off to somebody else. Well, that's ignorant on like 17 different fronts. The first of which is the fact that they weren't building their games. Yuga does not build their games. They have never built their games. Faraway was the one building most of their properties. The other idea is that they've abandoned Legends of the Mara and Heavy Metal, even though Yuga posted an article on their site alongside the headline that dives into the specifics of what's going on. Legends of the Mara and Heavy Metal will, of course, remain closely connected to both Yuga and other side ecosystems. They then roll down to say Faraway will now own these collections: Heavy Metal, Sewer Passes, Other Side Vessels, Other Side Maras, Codas, Ship Parts, Catalyst, partner loot. So they're shipping off part of the other side ecosystem into Faraway as well, and sewer passes, which Faraway doesn't own the rights for Dookie Dash, Yuga does. So obviously, this is a much deeper conversation than just Yuga has abandoned gaming and shipped everything over to Faraway. Again, people are reading headlines without actually looking into these things. They then go on to say Yuga will still own Kodas, which will remain central for the other side ecosystem, but they'll also participate in Faraway's new points system and what Faraway is doing as a way to reward Yuga ecosystem. From Faraway directly, they then say, we are working closely with Yuga to make sure that these IPs remain interoperable between Yuga and Faraway. There is so much more to this story than Yuga has abandoned gaming. They're shipping everything over to Faraway. They're just going to focus on Bored Apes. But again, nobody fucking reads anything. You read a headline, you read something that somebody else tweeted that was, really not that well thought out or put together, and that is your opinion on the matter. So I actually have, like I've said 100 times, literally no exposure to the Yuga ecosystem. I'll probably never have exposure to the Yuga ecosystem. It's just not for me. It's not something that makes sense to me. It's not something that I personally want to invest in. But I will go to bat for them for things that people just say blindly, like they aren't communicating what they're doing, like they don't have a plan, like they've abandoned gaming and they realized that gaming was too hard for them. There's obviously more to the story. Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know. That's your own personal opinion. But take it back 6 months ago. We were complaining that Yuga was distracted with gaming. We were complaining that the games aren't getting the love that they should be getting. And we were complaining that the Yuga IP was being abandoned because of this distraction. Fast forward 6 months, Yuga is focused full time on the IP. The games are being focused full time on the developer who was building those games. If you are saying that either of those two things are bearish, I think you're being disingenuous. And that's my honest take on the Yuga, this whole Yuga
Sorry,
thing.
Knock.
Hell
Wait,
yeah,
wait, wait.
hell yeah.
Hold on. Are we sure that just wasn't an excuse for Nock to read us a press release about Yuga?
You
No,
should
we can never
believe
be
every
sure.
press release that you read.
I don't think
Yeah,
I
but
remember that happening in that conversation, because I all my memories from 6 months ago are you just telling me that heavy metal was definitely going to be fucking amazing, just like Sewer Pass, and that we should for sure be betting it all on Yuga hitting two out of the park. So little fudged on my mind. Anyway, we move on. Vallarok Fumbles. What's the word? Valorok struggled to mint out this week. It's a survival game utilizing artificial intelligence, originally starting with a 2,000 supply. I believe trying to mint at 0.06. I'm not sure if they ever altered the actual pricing, then reducing it to 888. They still failed to mint all 888 NFTs. Eventually, I think last I checked, it was at like 857 had minted or something. So close, but no cigar. Is this the result of an underwhelming NFT market on ETH, or specifically a failure on Valorok's part? And what is the word? Jerry, I'm tagging you in first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both of those things, right? I think this is kind of what happens when you don't do a sprint in leading up to a big moment for you, and that's like, I feel really bad like beating up on a team that obviously didn't do the things that they were hoping to do with this mint, and I hope it's not taken as like me like punching them while they're down, because it's not how I feel. But like we talked about this on Simplified, like mints coming up and what are we excited about, and like almost everybody was like, what even are these guys, right? So they didn't do any of the things that like you should have seen teams do for the last 3 years, right? You should know now how to kind of start to structure out like a little sprint and a way to get eyes on you before you have this moment where you're hoping to raise like decent amount of capital for your company, right? And I just don't think they did that, right? I know they sent out some pre-sale stuff, wasn't a lot of information about it. We all looked at the game on Monday and we're all like, what is it? Like, why do I need this NFT? And there was a lot of unknowns for that. And so I think that's like, it's that's unfortunate, but that's a fumble on their part, right? I think when you look at the broader ecosystem, you see that things aren't really doing well on ETH without a built out ecosystem attached to it, or that sprint coming up, right? Who is another team that's gonna do something? I'm assuming this is gonna happen on ETH. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but like Cityverse. Do we think they're gonna make these same mistakes? I don't think so. Will Cityverse have a more successful mint wherever it happens? even if it's on ETH, they will because they're doing the right things. So ETH is just not a place where you can fuck around and find out right now. You have to come correct, you have to come legit, and you have to like do the road work. And if you don't do those things, you see what's going to happen. So if you're a project founder listening, this will happen to you if you don't attach yourself to a bigger ecosystem, or you don't, hire an agency to help you out, right? If you can't do it yourself. Now, I think, if this happened on Base or Blast, this would have been like an instant sellout, right? This would have done so well. And so, like, we talk a lot about NFTs, like, are they dead? Are they not? Not really, in my opinion. But try to take yourself to places where there is liquidity, where there is attention, where people are willing to spend. I'm sure Charlie will have a lot of opinions on this, but like, I think everything on Base is doing pretty well right now. I've been all over Blast like the last few days, in the last week or so. Talk to ICO Beast, he'll tell you that like Blast is on fucking fire right now. So if you are one of those teams, just get your names attached to people who can help you go to that next level, because this is your company runway that we're talking about. This is not like peanuts that we all mint money with or hope to get a 2x or anything. Like, this is your livelihood, and this is the livelihood of your team and your game and what should be your dream. So take that seriously.
Jordan in the comments adds TGI Fresco, which is, of course, Jerry, 100% on the lack of a multi-month sprint pre-mint. He's agreeing with you heavily. I would say I was unfortunately disappointed to find out that we're still doing this, like, no real idea what the hell the utility is of an NFT and trying to mint it. Like, I had no clue, and I was on some of their spaces and stuff. Maybe they communicated it, but I missed it. When I think it needs to be more clearly explained. I'm going to go to Charlie Blackstock, then to Koji.
You got to play the game, Jerry. What was the word, bud? I need a word from
Oh,
you.
sorry. The word is Jerry now works for an agency that can help you, so hit him up.
Wow, thumbs down.
Well, Andy fucking does it.
I pay good money to be able to do that.
Yeah.
My
You mean my
bad. My bad,
beloved
Sam.
sponsor, Jerry? Is that the Andy that you're talking about? My beloved sponsor?
We'll get steaks this weekend, Sam.
The guy with a radio antenna on his mustache or on his upper lip.
Charlie, what's the word for Vallarok failing to mint out?
Yeah, the word to me is just distribution, and I think there's a really good podcast I was listening to the other day where it's like, first time founders only care about product, second time founders only care about distribution. I think this is like, it's just a painful reality of like, when you're a builder, you just want to make a great product and hope a great product speaks for itself, but they don't anymore. Like, great products don't speak for themselves. This is an incredibly there's just a ton of content and stuff that just exists today. There's so much trying to capture our attention at any moment. So you need to lean into distribution networks and ways to distribute and get your message out. And a couple of tweets a month or a tweet a month, like, it just isn't going to cut it. You need to be going on spaces. You need to be doing marketing, and it's stuff that like every builder and engineer never wants to do, but it's part of the job now. You need to be super vocal. You need to be very present. You need to be attaching yourself to your product and be like the chief marketing person when you're building and launching these things. So I think that's my big takeaway is, if you're not selling out, it just was a lack of distribution and discovery. And if people are going into mint day and you're people that spend all day in gaming and they can't tell you what your game or utility is of your NFT, you just didn't do it right. And so trying to find networks that can help, and go into smaller chains like Blast or Base and attaching yourselves there can help a lot. And so it's also about playing the game. So, but yeah, distribution's my word.
Well said, Charlie. Koji, what's the word?
The word is foolish. I think we all know that ETH NFTs are dead. I'm going to take this time to announce that the next parallel comic is going to be minting on ordinals and not being dropped to runes holders or whatever. So there's that. But also, like, if you are going to do ETH NFTs, I think what you got to do is go around to every community and promise them all whitelist so that you're like oversubscribed by about like 700%. And then just promise it's like a node, or there's like, just say the letters TGE or some shit, and people will be like, yeah, okay, I'm in. Like, just
I mean, he's not
throw around
wrong.
as many.
Has
Yeah,
Koji ever
throw
given a
around as many
serious answer?
buzzwords as you can.
No, he is serious.
What?
Is the thing. It's this comical right now.
So I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but it's actually just like what's happening. if we all just like stop and look around, even behind the scenes, and this is no shade at any project, but like literally, I'm getting sent tons and tons of decks. And then all you have to do is just click the arrow to the second last deck where they say TGE and they tell you the valuation, and it's a 1-to-1 safe or SAFT or whatever. Like, and then people are like, "Fuck it, I'm in. Let me just write you a check for some nominal amount and then hope that I 100x this token or whatever." And you can probably just do the same thing on a smaller scale or a larger scale, I guess, with Ethereum NFTs. And it's like sad, but also maybe true. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Take that at like with a grain of salt or whatever. Not financial advice because I didn't do that. I have no idea if it works, but there you go.
All I'm hearing from Koji is a bunch of words to say we're so back. We're so back to making terrible fiscal decisions based on hype and things that we don't understand. Knock.
Yeah, just way more complicated this time
Ah,
around.
perfect. That's what I was hoping. We would make blockchain more complicated for everybody. Onboarding the masses, one complicated decision at a time. Knock, I'm tagging you in. Then we're going to Andy.
I think I'm rather uniquely positioned to talk a little bit about this because I deal with teams literally every single day. I've had 6 calls with teams looking to launch NFTs today. The first thing that I tell teams is that macroeconomic conditions, i.e., volume on a blockchain or volume of the entire ecosystem, is at the absolute best a secondary factor in whether or not you're going to sell out. And realistically, it's probably a tertiary factor. Have you built a community within that particular ecosystem? Have you spent time talking to opinion leaders? Have you spent time understanding the ecosystem? We're still a very tribal ecosystem. Like ETH versus Solana are two entirely different ecosystems. You have to play the game differently depending on where you are. And the idea that NFTs are hot somewhere, so you should try and go and move there is foolish. And almost 100% of the time, the teams that try to chase that fail. The other problem is that teams will look at recent mint prices and say, hey, well, Charlie is doing a mint for $80. That means I can do a mint for $80. What they don't understand is that Charlie's minting 100 pieces and you're trying to mint 10,000 pieces. Those are two wildly different raises. They are not the same just because the mint price is the same. And that's the trap that a lot of teams fall into. This other idea that ETH NFTs are dead is another example of what I was just, part of that Yuga rant that was going on, that nobody actually looks at anything, right? NFT Pulse and TXO are both reporting that at absolute worst, Ethereum is second in terms of chain by total volume over the course of the last month, last 7 days, and is first in total volume over the course of the last 24 hours, with double the amount of volume as the team in second place. If you look at NFT Pulse on the chain volume over the course of 30 days, Ethereum is first above Bitcoin and at 12x the size of base, right? So no, Ethereum NFTs are not dead. Teams are just spending less time building really well thought out go to market strategies. They're spending less time understanding the market. They're spending less time focusing in on their community, what people want to see, understand how they can price themselves. They're not working with teams that can help point them in the right direction. And if they are, they don't always listen to those teams. Where you launch your NFT has nothing to do with whether or not you're going to be successful and whether or not you're going to sell out. The only factor, really, the prime factor, number 1, 2, and 3, fuck it, that matter is, did you execute well on your go to market strat? And like Jerry said, on Monday, we were still asking questions about who is the game, who is the team, and what does this NFT do? And that should tell you all you need to know about whether or not that mint is going to be successful. The blockchains themselves are at best secondary, really, frankly, are probably tertiary factors into whether or not you're going to be successful. There are plenty of reasons to choose a blockchain like Avalanche or Base or Arbitrum. Whether or not that blockchain has a bunch of NFT volume shouldn't be one of them, because just because there's volume on a chain doesn't mean you're going to be able to effectively capture that volume if you don't understand how that ecosystem works. So the word that I would use is probably also foolish. It's ridiculous to think you can go into a mint without understanding that ecosystem, without running price exercises and be successful.
Jaxie in the comments says specifically it's a failure on Vallarok. Gated community with very little information. The dude was in his mint party saying that they were thinking up rarity last night and shit. So if that's true, that's definitely not great. Andy from Stardust, what's the word on Vallarok?
Not participating. Just wanted to say that I'm running into a meeting, and then I wanted to tell Koji that I've updated my bio to say lucky amateur because I think that's fucking hilarious. I think it describes most of Web3. So I'm gonna run with that for a while. I think that's an awesome little turn of phrase. But I'm gonna be on mute.
Oh, Koji, you mean the Ordinals Maxi? Oh yeah, I love that guy. He's great. Lems, over to you.
I'm all in runes now, baby. Thanks, Knock.
I will say disappointment is my word because I saw the trailer and actually liked the look of the game, and I did mint a couple, and I just wanted it to do well. But yeah, like I pretty much agree with all the points that were raised here. Is like they didn't have the attention. I would actually push back. I think it was Jerry who said if they had minted on Blast or Base, they would have just minted out fine. I think they still would have had the fundamental problem of not having enough attention and building up the community over time. We saw they had a closed Discord. It was like locked out and hard to get in there. So like there was just a lot of friction to learning about the project, and there wasn't as much information as there should have been up front. And they should. It felt like they kind of came out and tried to do everything really quickly and try to capitalize on the market at the moment. And it just didn't work out for them because they weren't prepared enough. They didn't have the right resources in place. They're a small indie team, but when you're a small indie team like that and you're spread thin and you're trying to build the game, you need to hire the right people, like a good agency or someone to actually support you and be able to distribute and get the word out. They did a small KOL campaign. It looked like there was some attention on Twitter, so I actually thought the mint would go better because some people tweeted about it, but there wasn't enough attention, and people didn't know what it was all about in the end, and that was the key problem. You really need to be able to actually harness that attention and build it up over time to do well. I'll preface this with like the comparison I'm about to make is like on the total opposite end of the spectrum, but just want to like point out how curating a good community and building attention up over time can help. We saw today mint like less than a month ago at this point, what, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was a 777 collection, so a small collection as well. And it flew off the shelves. They had such hype, but they had been building up for like a year. They had built out the community. They had raised funds and they had just been very public and had a public presence. We had Michael O'Connor on here a ton of times. You need to have that public presence as a founder in Web3. And unfortunately, they just didn't have enough presence. And I hope they can, pull it back together. They're a small indie team, but they definitely got to change some things if they want to be successful in this space.
What was arguably the most surprising to me about this entire thing was that they didn't recognize that they didn't have the momentum to mint out by over half. If they started with 2,000, didn't even mint 1,000, and then they actually asked me after that mint if they could join the Wolves DAO, which was hilarious to me. But I will take this opportunity to drop a little bit of alpha and say that the Wolves are actually launching something that can help organizations that are suffering from these exact problems. So if you want to get more information on that, slide into the DMs. Jerry, over to you.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify one point that I don't think I made well enough, which is essentially if you don't know how to get attention, going to places where attention is and talking to those teams can help you. Don't just go to base because there's people paying attention to that. That's obviously not going to work for you. But can those things help you? It's like a multivitamin, right? Is it a supplement? Yes. Is it the answer? No, you can't just eat flaming hot Cheetos all the time. And second, like if you're not that team that has somebody who's going to be a figurehead or your CEO or somebody on the exec level doesn't want to be that person, like just go hire somebody like VGF or like Knock or just hire somebody who's good at that and willing to do those things. It will just make your life so much better, and pay that person well and take care of them.
Let's go to Knock next.
Yeah, I think like one example that I want to bring up of a team that kind of iterates my point here or illustrates my point rather is Jeremy and Overworld. Like we did market analysis leading into that Overworld mint, and no team prior to Overworld had sniffed even like a $300,000 raise in the prior 90 to 120 days. But Jeremy understands the ecosystem. He spent time to speak to all of us one on one, get opinions, help to sculpt what his strategy for the go to market was. And he sold double what the most recent highest sale was in a pre sale before the fucking mint even went live. They then went on to raise $2.5 million. And that mint was so successful because of the groundwork that he put in that he actually made it easier for the next 5 or 6 teams who minted after Overworld to find success that they probably shouldn't have had or shouldn't have found because they were riding the coattails of a team who really understood the ecosystem. But Jeremy launched in one of the worst markets we have seen in a very long time after waiting out a slightly worse market for over a year. And he still launched and he still found success and he still has one of the highest raises in the course of the last calendar year because he executed well and he knew what he was doing and he spent time within the ecosystem. I can't stress this enough. Like 85 to 90% of the teams that I speak to on a weekly basis are under the impression that we should launch on X chain because X chain has the most hype and we can launch at X price because somebody else launched at that price. Neither of those factors are relevant to you as an individual team. The only thing that matters is that you are actually looking at the market holistically. You are gauging where your excitement and whether or not there's appetite for the product that you're selling. And if there isn't, you're being flexible and you're making changes like cutting supply or cutting price or both before you ever even fucking get to mint, because that's how you look stupid. There's few teams that have done it well. Fableborn is a team who maybe didn't have the appetite they thought they did. They cut and they've executed really well on the back end of that, but they're absolutely the exception to the rule. Pay attention to the ecosystem. Make sure that you're running internal temp checks. Understand whether or not there's appetite for the product that you're selling. And if there isn't, adjust accordingly.
I do have one more great topic that I want to get to. Uh, oh, sorry, thought we got rugged for a second. That we want to get to before the end of today, but I'm going to give the rest of the hands 60 seconds each. Charlie Blackstock, over to you.
Yeah, I think Knock had some awesome points there, and I think Jeremy Horn in Overworld is a great example of. The other word I wanted to say was like timing. Timing is so fucking important. Even not only timing for like your team and you being ready to mint out, but like
Did
timing
we
the
get
market.
rugged?
Oh, am I rugged?
No, I hear you, Charlie. I think Kicks got rugged.
Oh, God. Twitter in shambles. Go ahead, Charlie.
All right. Yeah. So I think just timing the market's really important, and just like understanding that, and like Jeremy, they delayed their mint 6-7 months because they've just felt like the timing wasn't right, and they got to reap the benefits of that on the back end. So as a team and as a founder, I think it's important to not only know where you're at as a business and whether you think you're ready to mint, but also where the market is moving and if you still think it's a good time to do it.
Brian DeSanto, over to you.
Yeah, and I fully agree about timing, but I think for me it's less about timing the market and more about timing your hype. I think it's telling that nobody in the Wolves DAO felt connected to this project in any way. We barely even knew about it, and it's 300 of the most connected people in the space. I think it just speaks to you need to be in the trenches, you need to lay the groundwork, you need to get your hands fucking dirty and meet people, talk to people well before you're mint, and do that for longer than you think you need to, before you lace out your sale. So I think it's that. And the other piece is I think really hire a degen, hire a face that people know to lead your rollout, your growth, your community. Just be a face that people can talk to and connect with and know for trust. I think it goes miles for teams that are trying to come in late and haven't, built through the bear over the last couple of cycles. So I think it's be visible, be relatable, build trust, and do that for longer than you think you need to. There are no shortcuts in that game.
Nico adds a great comment, says great point from Knock. We can't just provide competitive product, we have to provide competitive incentives. It's not because we have something similar to another project that price point and success will be the same. Jonah, I'm giving you the last word before we move on to our final topic of the day. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Yeah, thank you, brother. So what I was, dude, I fucking love sketch. What I was gonna say is that all of you are right, but also I think everyone's gotten much smarter. And I mean, Valorok, like realistically, this is a game that doesn't necessarily belong in crypto. I think it was acquiring crypto capital, but survival games don't need crypto. And I think everyone secretly knows that, right? I say things, my job is to say things people don't want to say out loud, so I will. This game didn't belong in this industry. I think it got the capital, but it didn't need a mint. It doesn't need a token. Tokens and mints are for very PvP games, and there's nothing PvP about a survival game. It's a story-based game, and it's like a content game, and so it just didn't have the right product placement.
Yeah, it's well said. I think between what you and Brian DeSanto adding about him really not being, or them really not being integrated in the ecosystem, us not really understanding how it could elevate a survival game, and then on top of that, ETH NFTs being kind of down bad, it's a recipe for disaster. We're moving on to our last topic of the day: bullish or bullshit. Gaming infrastructure investments actually flip direct investments into games. Shout out to DAP Radar. This is in one of their reports. Essentially, we went from this being the opposite to it being 51% of investments in Q1, the one that we just had, went into infrastructure, 51% into infrastructure, 70 or 47% into games themselves. Curious if you guys think this is bullish or bullshit for our industry. Koji, I'm sending it over to you first.
First of all, you just well said Jonah, and nothing could have made me happier. So thanks for
You're
that,
welcome,
Sam.
brother.
Yeah. Also, it's I think it's a little bit of both. I know I'm not playing the game correctly, but I have to choose one. I would say that it is maybe not so bullish, but the fact that people think that there's money to be made um, in the infrastructure piece means that they feel like the games are mature enough that they need that infrastructure. So I think that is bullish, and of course, like infrastructure partners need to be there. Shout out Stardust and whatever other sponsors you have. I can't keep track of them all, but I do think that like in another sense, it's a little bit bearish because it's like I feel like it's a lot of people who can't really hack it at making games, or not can't hack it isn't the right word, but making games is a lot harder than solving problems because rather than showing someone a piece of software and saying like, here's the problem that I'm going to solve for you, I'm going to make your life easier. Of course, you should buy this. Someone who's making a game is just like, hey, waste your time with me and don't play these other games, but like don't go to the movies, don't watch Shogun or whatever. Like play this stupid space card game. And so I think that's a lot harder to sell. And the only way that the space is going to get better is if we actually have more creators making games in the space at a high level. And I think that like we shouldn't be focusing so much on the infrastructure part yet, but I do think that it's bullish that the infrastructure partners think that we need all of this right now, looking at the games and not seeing them as like helpless infants.
Fair play, Koji. I'm going to Chuck Stock, Mr. Charlie Blackstock.
Man, how can you not love Koji? Every time you talk, man, it's just fucking hysterical, and I feel like I just agree with everything you're saying. Um, I feel like I would go on the more of the bullshit side. I just I feel like blockchains were kind of meant to be the infrastructure play this entire time. I feel like there's so much money that goes into infra and a space in a world where we have so much great technical infrastructure that exists. There's never been an easier time as an engineer and a builder to ship incredibly high quality tech and software. And unfortunately, I think infra still just carries a really nice price tag when you're raising money. Um, so I think you see a lot of gaming infra projects come out because it's easy. It's a lot easier to raise than to raise as a game studio. I think it's an easier pitch, like Koji said, to solve a problem than to say I'm going to create this one-hit wonder that's going to get everyone to play. But that's what we need. We need people playing games. We need apps. We need like something that's really exciting to cling on to, whether it's IP or a new launch. And I'm not. I personally don't love the more and more gaming infra, and I just would love to see more energy and time and money going into games because I think that's better for the space in the long term.
Just a reminder, we got one more Cityverse whitelist to give out today's show. So you got 10 more minutes. Give us a retweet, give us a comment, all the great stuff that supports the shows, and we'll make sure it goes to somebody who does deserve it. Tony from Shrapnel, I would love to hear your thoughts. Bullish or bullshit? Infrastructure investment, flipping, direct game investment.
Well, let me tell you, Koji and Chuck, that was really well said, both of you. Super well said. I think it's bullish, and I hope it's bullish because we're about to be rolling out a whole bunch of information about our upcoming infrastructure play. I think that I do echo a lot of what Chuck and Charlie and Koji were saying in that I think the space is getting pretty crowded pretty quickly with a bunch of different infrastructure products, and so I'm interested to see, to Charlie's point, who's able to help build things that look more like the unity of Web3. And what I mean by that is more spiritually, in that like Unity did a lot for the mass production of video games, right? Like when people started adopting that framework and that infrastructure, to use the I word, we just saw a dramatic hockey stick in the in the increase of games that were being produced and developed. And as a result of that, we saw an increase in quality as a function of wisdom of the masses. There were 500 shitty Hades before there was a good Hades, so forth and so on. And so I think that the infrastructure products that adopt that model, that allow the really talented people like Charlie in the space and all of them to do cooler stuff and are less about proprietary gatekeeping in the way that we see a lot of the higher fidelity game engines that operate right now. I think that's where we'll see the wins, and that's where we're placing our bets. So
Super curious about this infrastructure play that he's alluding to. Ed Chang, head of gaming at AVAX, send it over to you.
I think it's bearish. I mean, I think if you ask most of the people here, what does the space need? I think we need a game or two or a couple games to get to hundreds of thousands of monthly active wallets and millions, if not millions, of monthly active wallets. And you invest in a top infra partner that corners the market, that doesn't necessarily kind of raise the tide for everybody or open the top of the funnel, right? That's how I think at a basic level. We talk to a lot of games these days, and you can always have better tooling, I think, but with what you have today with a lot of these custodial wallet providers, account abstraction, you've got Third Web, you've got Stardust, you've got a lot of really great infra partners that I think solve for most of the pain points that you have. And so then it becomes a content game, right? And going back to Knock scolding a lot of these Nyan Heroes fanboys around, can you stop equating every new game that has promise to try to be the X killer, right, of that market? I think if we can have some actual real winners in the content, I think it'll solve a lot of that. I think everybody carries a lot of pressure on your shoulders these days. When you talk to your friends who are Web2 gamers, I talk to Web2 gaming VCs, and they're like, wait, Web3 gaming is still a thing? You're still working in that? That hurts. I take that stuff personally. So for me, I'm all about investing in content more until we actually get to market with a lot of these winners. And there's a lot of good candidates on a lot of chains.
Great stuff out of Ed Chang. I'm tagging in Jonah. Your thoughts on infra flipping direct game investments?
Neither bearish or bullish. This is very typical and happens in VC. It's just the level of risk you're willing to take. So what happens, and by the way, blockchains count as infrastructure in their minds. So what happens is an infrastructure company or a game that's building infrastructure is going to get the most capital accrual. They may build their own title, or most likely what happens is once they have enough capital and tooling built out, then they'll start a grant or their own fund beneath it. And basically what I'm saying is the capital flows to games one way or the other. It's either it goes from VC to game or VC to infrastructure to game. Yeah, this happens in Web2 all the time. So it's just how it all goes. It's normal.
Yeah, I was wondering if anybody was going to bring that up, the influx of games that are now chains and everything else that is now a chain, and how that might be kind of
Has to be
skewing these
both.
numbers.
That's what the requirement is. That's if you're gonna raise money for a game like like anything beyond a Series A. If you're raising money for a game, automatically on your deck it has to say token and it has to say doing your own L3 or your own chain. It's just the requirement. You're not getting money if you don't put that in.
Don't forget the 3 slides dedicated to artificial intelligence being integrated to Jerry, tagging you in next.
Yeah, I think it's bullish. To use one of my least favorite analogies of all time, like picks and shovels companies are really important too, right? It's a lot easier to mine gold if there's people providing good quality picks and shovels. And so better infrastructure is going to mean that listen, one of the things that I hate that happens in Web3 is every feature creep and scope creep just are so rampant. Every promises happens at every game studio. They go, this chain isn't really working for us. And then somebody goes, we should do our own. And then everybody else who's a lower level person goes fuck, please, can we not? And then, they kind of kick the tires on it, right? And we don't need those conversations to be happening, right? We want these studios to just be focused on games and successful mints. And, there's already a lot of shit to worry about. So, the better the infrastructure can be to support these games and let people just do what they do and then effortlessly integrate, the Web3 elements on top of those things, it's all going to be a net positive for the industry.
I see in the comments says AI layer 3, take my money. You'll you'll love to hear it. Knock, over to you.
I think Andy remembers this. He's been around for a long while. There's a point in time where there were like 47 companies trying to do what Stardust did, but just really poorly. And all of those companies have, for the most part, died out. I think it's bullshit in the way that funding is being distributed. I think, broadly speaking, games are almost a top of funnel product. If you look at some of the biggest games in the world today, almost all of them have some form of either larger media or infrastructural play that are associated with the game. So Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft have done UGC platforms and payment rails. You've got things like, and they actually did like the actual distribution of those products through the Epic Store. Steam did a very similar thing with what Valve has purchased with the Steam ecosystem and what they've created there off the backs of their successful titles. I think long term, big games trend towards infrastructure because it's more lucrative, it's more scalable. You're not tied directly to the health and success of one individual title, and you build out reusable infrastructure that is good long term. I think it would be bullish if these teams were investing more specifically into companies like Parallel and what they're doing and what a bunch of other titles in the space are doing. They're trying to leverage the game. They're building some other larger infrastructural play. There's something that will tie into the gaming ecosystem that to me would be bullish. The way it's happening today is it's scope creep, right? It's let's fund 64 companies to build what 64 other companies are currently building, and hopefully our company is the one that wins. I think that that's a terrible investment, but it comes off the back of games being an even worse investment than taking a bet on one of 100 infrastructural plays that are building the same thing. Games are inherently bad investments to make. No, almost no games are successful long term, and even the ones that do, don't have 5, 10, 20 year success. So you might see your return, you might have a bunch of success in the short term period, but it's not something that is going to be sustainable long term. Whereas something like Steam or the Epic Store or the data play that Supercell has put together, that is infinitely scalable. Every game that Supercell puts out can plug into that, right? So I think it's bullshit in the way that it's doing it because we're just funding a bunch of teams that are all building the same shit, none of them really doing it well. I think it would be bullish if we were working with and funding games that are now making that natural evolution into an infra play, like what Koji and his team are doing.
Yeah, it makes sense across the board. I would be inclined to also to call it bullish, just in general, because we need the infrastructure in order to build good games on reasonable platforms that actually are scalable. But if it's just because we're calling it a blockchain and not a game, then that's not very helpful. Ricky Roller says infra for infra's sake drives me crazy. For a lot of it, I'm at bullish, or excuse me, he says bullshit greater than bullish. So I'm inclined to agree with you there. I'm going to give the last Cityverse NFT that we have, the whitelist that is, to Ricky Roller. Appreciate you, man. I see the comments. I see the retweets. Big shout out. Appreciate that tremendously. Jay from Geno Pets also says you can't spell Web3 game without AI, which I just think is hilarious. Comment. And then Jerry's also in the comments saying raising for an infrastructure project immediately. Charlie, I saw you had the hand up. I'm going to give you the last word on this one.
Oh yeah, it's more a comment to Jerry's like picks and shovels thing. I feel like we're getting to the point where like we all know that analogy and we all know that's like it was like this, the real winners of the gold rush. But now it feels like we're going so far beyond that, where it's like we have a mountain filled of gold and everyone's still just building picks and shovels shops around it. Like no one's no one's going into the mountain to dig the gold or like build the apps. And I totally get it, but I just feel like we're all kind of it just feels like there's too much avoiding the hard problem, and the hard problem isn't infrastructure anymore. The hard problem is getting users to come play our games and build the apps. Like I just think these infrastructure plays, as much as like I'm really excited by like what Tony's teasing with shrapnel. I'm sure that's gonna be really impressive because I'm sure you guys have learned a lot, and this is probably gonna be really exciting. But there's just like there's Avalanche, there's Stardust, there's Third Web, there's we have all the tools to get people to play games, and I feel like we're still just continuing to avoid trying to get users and just making infrastructure plays. So I agree with like what Knox said. It's more of bullshit that I don't like that this is the way that it's happening. And I just want it to be going to games. But I also agree with Jonah that this is just a cyclical thing with the DC, and that's just how investing works. But I just want to see games win, and I just want to see more people being more excited to build games and launch games, and avoiding just the infrastructure, just because that's where the BC money is.
I'll say that like like games are being made anyway. Like I promise that there are games that are coming to the like. I've had calls with companies that a year ago would have told me to fuck off and never talk to them, and I'm a criminal. And to like literally today, I had an hour-long call with a group that makes games for Mr. Beast, and they're like, "Would you be interested in helping us form a crypto raise and bringing our thing to blockchain?" Like these are guys who before were not going to do it at all. Like Web 2 is poor, guys. All you need to do is keep flowing capital into the space, and eventually they'll break because they're poor. They're poor over there, and they need money to make games, so they will eventually cave.
Beast token coming to a blockchain near you. Confirmed. A bunch of great comments. Chill.x says, I want a layer 7 and 50 more blockchains. I don't mind having 100 more wallets. It makes sense. Justin Lucas says AAA picks and axes 100% esports compatible. And Icy says, this has been a great episode. Charlie, Kix, Brian are great to hear on the panel among the fantastic regulars. Knock and Ed's banter is amazing. Jerry making Aston Martin proud. Well, that's a throwback to the very beginning of the episode. And Koji is always hilarious. I am so inclined to agree with you, my brother. It's been a fantastic time back. I'm so happy that I was able to get my voice operational so that we could do this episode together. I miss you guys whenever I miss an episode. And as we holster our heroics, let's lend a roaring round of applause to the Titans and Trailblazers who have turned the tides in our favor. Shrapnel, the crown champion and official game of gamified in the sprawling saga of FPS supremacy, Shrapnel emerges as the elite envoy, masterminding a maelstrom of might and munitions. Each strategic strike and calculated clash crafts a chronicle of chaos and courage. And let's cast a spotlight on the icy innovator, the foundation of our fun in our fantastical foray into the fusion of finance. Avalanche, the official blockchain of gamified. Unleash a thunderous ovation for Avalanche, our Arctic architect, valiantly vaulting through the virtual vortex, etching pathways of pristine precision. And before we end today's show, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Stardust, the official infrastructure of gamified, one more time. This formidable force now fields a fully managed user acquisition, DSP, and performance marketing marvel, meticulously molding the masses into consumers monetizing in your metaverse. With Stardust, stellar strategies suffused with Web3 secrets, snare sublime players at scale, securing sky-high LTV users at a snip of the cost. Thank you to Stardust and my other amazing sponsors, Shrapnel and Avalanche. I love you guys so much. And of course, to all the panelists today, Tony, so great to have you back behind the Stardust account, or excuse me, the Shrapnel account. Fucking amazing, man. I love your energy every single time, and the Twitch stories just never get old to me. Kix, so excited about what you're doing at Midnight Heist. Thank you so much. Jonah, for coming up from the audience as well. Appreciate you, man. Those insights came in hot. Brian DeSanto and Finnegods with an absolutely massive announcement of an $8 million raise, fully taken up by Pantera. They didn't want anybody else to get a share because they believe so deeply in what you guys are doing. So proud and happy for you guys. Ed Chang came in absolutely hot on today's episode. Love the banter, love the insights. Appreciate you always making time for us, brother. Koji, of course, the luckiest man in Web3 with absolutely no talent or skill whatsoever. Jerry, always making the insights.
Dude, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, well, Charlie with Farcaster absolutely crushing. No, Jerry's absolutely killing it with Uptick. If you guys need user acquisition or what I don't know, marketing campaigns, something, I need to learn more about what the fuck Uptick does.
I didn't pay for a sponsorship slot, so I don't want to step
Yeah,
on Andy's toes.
dead
It's
to me.
okay.
And Charlie absolutely crushing it on Farcaster. If you guys don't know, they're probably the single coolest decentralized social media over there, and Charlie is doing some incredible things. It doesn't really make its way over to the Twitterverse, but super, super proud of what he's been able to accomplish over there. Thank you guys so much. You know, you'll see us back here, same time, same place. And as Kix so pointedly pointed out, we'll be on episode 69 in just 5 short weeks. So maybe we could do something fun for that. Appreciate you guys. See you next week.
Woo!
Let's go, brother.
Thank you.